everybody. Welcome to episode 255. Tesla is down 4% at $395 per share. Overall markets are lower today. Nasdaq down 1.4%, Dow Jones slightly negative, S&P 500 down 0.7%. Mag 7 companies are leading the industry down today. All of them are down. Tesla's down 4, Nvidia is down 5%, Apple, Microsoft down 1%, Meta 2%, Google down 1%. Most technology companies are down. Oracle, Palantir, Adobe, Netflix, every single one of them. There's a big technology sell-off today. I think what happens is, like as I've been saying in on X and here as well, that Nvidia has been holding up the entire market, and Nvidia's stock ran up more than 10%, leading into yesterday's speech by Jensen. And I think people maybe had some high expectations of what they were going to hear, and that didn't happen. So Nvidia went down hundreds of billions of dollars, lost hundreds of billions of dollars in market cap within 1 hour this morning, which is amazing. And because of that, to the extent that some of these portfolios, retail portfolios, have leverage holding Mag 7 companies, the other ones are selling off as well. A lot of these kind of move in tandem. And it's probably because of all the tens of billions of dollars kind of placed into these QQQ ETFs. So lots of indices and leverage built into these leverage ETFs. Companies are moving together. So this might be the point in time when Nvidia peaks, but that's TBD. I think Nvidia is one of the biggest bubbles in history, only exceeded by a couple of events. Not the tulip event. The tulip event wasn't as big of a, like, it wasn't in the trillions of dollars, even adjusted for today's money. But there's been only a couple of other, like a tech bubble, but that's a whole index. And I think in the 1700s, there's a sea trading company that went into a bubble and that collapsed. So we're watching history unfold here with Nvidia, in my opinion. Nvidia seems to be peaking around $150 per share. There's a top, if you look at it from a technical analysis perspective. It's been at this, it's kind of tried this top for the last 6 months or so, tried to exceed it for the last 6 months or so. And it's making higher lows. So purely from a technical analysis perspective, this could be an indication that it will continue higher to even as high as, let's say, $200 per share. It's possible, but I doubt it. I doubt it. I see Meta in the crowd. If he wants to come up, we can chat a little bit. I'll pin at the top of our screens. The FSP community tracker made a major change yesterday that, in my mind, really lowered its value quite a lot. So I pinned my take on it at the top of our screens. And it's really unfortunate that Elias decided to do this. But the removal of the trimmed mean is a major problem for the tracker, in my opinion. And this is apparent when you dig into the lower levels of data too, like deeper levels of data that the tracker provides. But it's unfortunate. It is what it is. People want to fit into a community. I get it, but it was a good tool. Meta?
When you're referring to the trimmed mean, are you talking about dropping the top 10% and the bottom 10%?
Yeah. And it can be trimmed in different levels. It doesn't have to be 10%. It can be 5%, 10%, 20%. What matters is that it improves the statistical significance, like the reliability of the mean. And that depends on the variability in the data.
Yeah, for what it's worth, when I originally proposed that idea to him, I had suggested this is what he did, but what I had suggested was why not just present the percentiles, right? Like present the 95th percentile, the 90th percentile, the 50th percentile, instead of just an average.
I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think for me at least, the tracker did what it's supposed to do. I took away my lessons and learned a lot. I saw some relationships. It's from V10 to V11 to V12 to V13 that I think will prove useful in the future. And it is what it is. And I learned a lot about um, kind of um, the pros and cons of different geographies and driving conditions in the process. So that's all good too. But um,
How do you feel about the current? I'm going to suggest things to him as well, but like the current breakdown by state is interesting. But for the states where he has enough mileage, which again, I know you and I are going to have different numbers on it, but why not start breaking it down by city and then allow people to look at? Because in my opinion, ever since 12.6 or 12.4, whatever it was, in California, in the Bay Area, I have not experienced critical disengagements. Um, there have been, I guess you could argue some, I don't know how people qualify, but like there are times where maybe it takes a longer route than it would have had it not missed a turn, for example. Maybe that's critical. But if we don't call those critical and we just say those are annoying, then I haven't experienced critical disengagements. I'm just curious because I am seeing more and more people reporting this. These days, I'm less concerned about that data, and I think what's happening more in the community is about like the TAM. Like I think more and more people are just saying Tesla's going to be the only company, and I just don't think that's realistic.
yeah, so I think the definitions of critical interventions, and I actually define as critical, I name it critical intervention, not disengagement. So, for example, if you're on the highway, which has happened to me in Texas many times, coming out of Giga Texas, going back to Austin downtown, when there are multiple layers of highways, which is common in Texas, sometimes it takes the speed limit of the upper level highway. So you end up slowing down while going 80 miles an hour all the way down to like 30 if you allow it, which is ridiculous. Which is,
Yeah, that's
I
pretty
mean,
bad.
now technically, by the definition of that tracker, that's not a disengagement. So it doesn't show up in the critical disengagement. But you have to push the accelerator. So that's an intervention in some people's minds. But as far as I'm concerned, that's a critical intervention, and it shouldn't happen. So I don't think Elon also distinguishes between disengagement and intervention either. Like, are you
He
going
does
to
not.
die or not? Basically, that's the
Yeah,
idea.
no. I think all they look at is the pure raw data of how often anybody had to give user input.
Yeah, exactly. Any human
Also,
pleasure.
I think they have a higher bar because they often talk about like synthetic. I said this before, and like people who are Tesla Q were like, "Oh, you're inventing stuff." There's synthetic disengagements, right? Like, oh, the jerk was too high. We decelerated too fast. We didn't get to the destination at the time we predicted. Things like that.
Yeah. Um, I mean, so you asked about geographies. So as far as I'm concerned, the data is like any sort of aggregate number or mean number is useless unless if you have tens of thousands of miles from um, thousands of entries and hundreds of testers.
Do you
And
think it would be useful if we aggregated the Tesla logs data from the fleet? I know Omar was going to do this, and he paused on it for a bit. I've been thinking about possibly helping him finish that out. But if we did collect the data from lots of people who it was purely automatic, but it was not annotated, so all we would see is they pushed the accelerator, they hit the brakes, basically they entered and exited FSD. Would that be good, or do you think that'd be just too noisy?
I don't think Tesla's going to allow that. He
It's
already,
allowed.
Omar
I got
tried.
permission already to do that with the app application.
I thought Omar said that Tesla, like he gave up on that effort, didn't he? Because Tesla was kind of frowned upon or something.
I don't know if that's the case. It can be a bit challenging to implement, but it's I put the exact description into the app application and they approved it.
Okay. Well, are you going to do it?
If I have magic time sometime, yes. But I don't wanna do it if, like, you can help me talk myself out of it in the first place, for the data's not good.
Yeah. I mean, we're okay. So let's kind of. This is all. There's a lot of NFL data. There's a lot of video, and there's FSC tracker data. Where do you think is the true number of miles between critical interventions today?
I would say maybe like, what region are we talking about for this to be?
Let's say
If we're talking, like,
California and
Bay Area.
Texas statewide.
Okay, my personal experience in the area in which I am, like, so the Bay Area, I'd say maybe critical intervention once a month of normal driving, which is like, 12,000 miles, so once every 1,000 miles.
Once every 1,000 miles in the Bay Area.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, that's intervention, right? Like, as we define it, like, um, obnoxious enough that it would miss a turn. Also, to be clear, I'm not like, uh, in an area where I'm constantly. There's some people who are like, oh, there's this one intersection by my house that always misses that intersection. Well, for those people, that number's gonna be much higher.
Yeah. All right. Um, and when do you think nationwide it is going to get to 1,000?
I don't know that we're gonna get, like, I'll be honest, I don't think we get to nationwide without, like, a change in approach. Um, like, either Tesla has to accept that they're gonna do a large amount of, map data, or they have to wait for advances which are coming in, and hope that those solve the approach. I'm not a believer in nationwide solutions with a single model without any map data. It's just, if you look at the amount of construction that pops up and down, if you look at unique edge cases, I think there'll be. Let's say we've solved everything in 2024. Like, they took everything that ever happened in 2024. They went and back tested, and they're like, okay, we can do every drive we did in 2024 perfectly now. In 2025, they would still discover new stuff that didn't happen in 2024.
Yeah. Okay, so you're not focused on nationwide data, you're just focused on California, Texas statewide data.
Yeah, I think city by city they can get there.
Okay, let's take some notes.
I see Wes is in the audience, by the way. I don't know if he wants to hop
Yeah,
up.
yeah, I sent him an invite. If he wants to come, he can. Um, so you think FSD unsupervised statewide or city, Austin and San Francisco by end of 2025?
I think they're going to have to enable it in the state just based on the California law. But maybe in Texas they go city by city first. But then eventually, yeah, if the state requires a report in the state, then launch in the state. Why would you go city by city?
Okay. When do you think Tesla will have FSD unsupervised in California statewide?
I've been wrong many times, but I'm hoping this year. Like, I mean,
Okay. Are you willing to
I
make a coffee bet on that?
no, I think I'm off the coffee bets, but we could do a friendly coffee bet. What are you thinking?
There's no zero chance it's going to happen this year. Zero in California. Maybe
This is
Austin, some
maybe
city,
Austin. Yeah, it's very
but
possible
nothing
they
critical.
start with one city first, and the city to start with would probably be Austin. Are you thinking it's because of political reasons, or do you think it's because of technology limits?
Political.
Yeah, that's uh, maybe very, very, very possible. It's
Yeah.
because of political reasons. Yeah.
Like technology wise, maybe they can do it um in like San Francisco or some like Bay Area, like you said, at the end of this year. Maybe some like a
Yeah.
few routes, like kind of like how Cruise and Waymo started,
Yeah,
you know?
the motivation, I think, is like, I see more and more Waymos now, in the Bay Area, especially on the highway more often, which is, you know, a thing that they got permission to do. If they start like, if tomorrow the commute starts going from people driving to using Waymos, it would be weird to see people with Waymos showing up to Tesla offices. So at some point, just out of like human nature and competition, they're gonna want to launch in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Um But I think the fact that like that news that California tried to exclude Tesla from their own version of EV credits is insane. Like that's an eye
To be
opener.
fair, the federal government tried to do that first too with the union stuff, right?
Yeah, well, what California can do more than what the federal government can do against Tesla, as you know. I mean, they really hate Elon over there. You know,
What did
statewide.
California try to do against Tesla and succeed? I know the politicians say stuff, but I don't think they actually succeed with legislation.
They shut down Fremont.
No,
Remember?
they didn't. They never did. They tried to, but they never successfully did.
You're telling me Tesla's Fremont factory did not slow down? Did not? You don't think it didn't shut down? Are you serious? Let me see.
I'm pretty sure they were going to shut it down, and then Elon said, "I'm going to walk the picket line. If you're going to arrest anybody, arrest me." And then they just didn't do it.
Let me see. In 2020. Yes, in late March 2020, Tesla temporarily shut down its Fremont factory as a result of COVID-19 related health orders in Alameda County, where the facility is located. The factory closed for several weeks before gradually resuming operations in May 2020 in compliance with local safety guidelines. Yeah, I think I remember the exchange that you mentioned, but they did shut down eventually.
Yeah, but how many days are we talking? Is this like significant compared to like when they
Several
do a
weeks. Yes.
line update?
That is
Yeah.
significant. Several weeks. So
Okay.
they tried and succeeded. And I mean, I'm sure there's other things. Like there's a reason why Elon left for Texas. You know, there's many things that we probably didn't hear about.
Yeah, for what it's worth, it looks like it was 3 weeks. It was during the first 2 week shutdown
Yeah,
of stay in place.
this was ChatGPT o1 model thinking for 4 seconds. I asked a question the other day that made got it to think more than 2 minutes. How about that?
I mean, was it the question phrasing or was it the complexity? It's hard to know with you.
The complexity. I was trying to do some energy use calculations.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man, it's amazing what they can achieve now. When do you think O3 model is coming?
Did you see Sam's post today about how crazy it is that OpenAI is losing money on every pro subscriber?
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah, I seen it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I don't think it's coming anytime soon. Like maybe if everybody's willing to pay $200 a month, but O3 is certainly not going to be cheaper than O1. Certainly not even close to as cheap as what
Yeah.
most people are on, which is not even O1.
I mean, how many people do you think sign up for $200 a month? Maybe a million around the world?
Mm, I don't know how many people will sign up for $200 a month if there are competitors out there offering the same level of
Right,
quality for 20.
right, exactly. Okay. So you don't want to do coffee bets, but you said FSD unsupervised by the end of this year and
At least one city.
2025 in it's going to be Austin. Like there's no
Yeah.
fucking way it's going to be any other.
Probably going to be Austin. Yeah. The
Or
only
maybe
the
like
only
maybe
the only
it'll be
caveat I give it.
Starbase. Maybe
Here's the
we'll throw
caveat.
around rockets.
Here's the caveat. They said that they are already doing employee rides in the Bay Area, right? That means if they can start testing it out, if they have safety drivers, per my understanding, the AV permit rules are already written. Unless they go write new laws, they probably continue to go forward. And politically, just putting it out there, I don't know how factual this will be, but Trudeau is stepping down. Zuckerberg's changing his policy on how if Facebook does censorship to be more like X. You could argue that election has swayed a lot of people who were on one side of the political spectrum to realize if they stay on that spectrum, their career is going to be limited.
Yeah, but not California governor.
Well, who knows how long that governor will be governor?
You think so?
Yeah, I think the political dynamic has really shifted in the country. Remember, California's been red for a long time in the past too, right? And the South is pretty red. It's not always been blue.
Okay. All right. What do you want to talk about?
Honestly, I wanted to talk about the real world models and what NVIDIA talked about. And
Yeah.
that space if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. What did you think of it, Jensen's speech presentation?
I think it's good. I think it's an interesting play that NVIDIA is doing to release the weights, knowing that you're going to have to buy their hardware. NVIDIA is in a very interesting space right now because um, if they don't get large usage of AI that's coupled with NVIDIA chips going soon, then it gives Amazon and Microsoft time to get multiple iterations of their chips out there. And obviously, Google already has some. Those are the threats to NVIDIA. If NVIDIA can continue to get people to use and want and continue to use NVIDIA chips, it forces the other cloud providers to already buy a bunch of chips, build APIs, build support, customers to get used to it. And then that'll create friction for them to go from NVIDIA chips to Infurion, in my opinion.
Okay. So are you making any investment changes based on this observation?
No investment changes yet, but I probably will not renew my call spread on NVIDIA.
Okay. When did you put on your call spread?
Let me go look. It
Is that
was
right? About
about 6 months, maybe 6 months ago. And I think it's set to expire like in a week or two. It's like the third week of January.
okay.
It's
Um,
like I could close it for like a penny right now. It's not a real. It's done.
oh, I see. Oh, because it didn't go up as much as you thought.
No, I sold a call spread up high.
Oh, you sold a call spread. Okay.
Yes.
So you're not going to sell another call spread because you expect the stock will increase.
I suspect the market could remain what is it? What is the dang, I've messed up the
Remain
quote.
irrational.
There you go. More,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it could remain irrational for a while.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, today the stock went down um, $300 billion of market cap within a matter of 1 hour. Isn't that wild?
Does that have to do with macro more than the stock though? Didn't everything go
Yeah,
down?
it's more stock than macro, I think. And
Okay. Yeah.
like the
I
you
mean,
can
real.
up and everything, but I've been saying for a few days now that Nvidia has been holding up to market, and for the last week or two, and everything else has been, either flat or down. Um, so
Yeah, I
I
think.
said that if Nvidia turns down, then you're going to see a massive sell-off, and we kind of got a taste of that this morning in the first hour here.
Yeah, I
So
think you can reflect that in like you can see crypto and all that kind of stuff too. Is highly coupled with people who have Nvidia stock. Um, I prefer if we just stick to maybe the technical side, if that's okay.
yeah, that's fine.
On a
Um,
technical front for
yeah,
Nvidia right now, I think I the challenge to me is let's say you're Nvidia and you want to grow. Um, the places where they could grow is by selling more chips, which requires them to get more fab from TSMC. They could grow by selling the same number of chips for more money, which means they have to somehow squeeze more quality out of those chips, or there has to be such a supply vacuum that and huge demand for those chips that they continue to be able to overcharge more for the same chips or same quality of chips, or finally they have to create a new revenue stream like software. I'm not sure if I'm missing anything, but those are the three ways I look at NVIDIA, and we could talk about each if you think those are the three.
I think they're going to continue to sell more chips, obviously. I think the unit growth will continue positive. I think the growth rate will come down, but they're not going to be able to charge the prices they're charging. The margins will decline. The free cash flows will probably turn down, let alone grow at the same speed they've been. Um, so, you know, I've looked at this company now for a year, and I first said sell um, about 9 months ago. The stock continued to increase, and but at a slower rate, and it's been flat pretty much for the last 6 months or so. And you know, there's a lot of hype built into it. I mean, the guy is signing boobs. It's internationally global news when he speaks and doesn't say anything. He didn't say anything yesterday. And I guess there's a fireside chat or whatever going on tomorrow morning, so maybe we'll get more details around what the market was expecting for doing that. I don't know, but I think people really like he's not going to come out of the like he's not going to come out and make an announcement that changes the story, like change the fundamentals of the company for the next few years. We're not going to get that
Okay.
tonight or tomorrow. It's just going to generate headlines, and maybe the stock will move up, whatever. And I'm ready for something like that. I have my plan B, C, D, whatever, and um, but there's no question in my mind that this stock is in a bubble, and it's probably one of the top five bubbles of all times. Including um, the tech bubble is ahead of it, but that's obviously overall market thing. Um, Japanese asset bubble is another one. 18th century sea trading company bubble is another one. Tulips are the ones that get often mentioned often, but it's actually like if you adjust it for today's dollars, like tens of billions of dollars. So it's like it's nowhere near what this is. This is trillions of dollars of bubble in Nvidia, and yeah, I guess we'll see. Did you want to say something about yesterday's?
Yeah, I got a drop here. But I just want to say I just went and looked. My call spread was at 170.
Mhm.
It's closed now. But yeah, remember a year ago we had that conversation, and that's around the time when, I decided to do this. But it was uh it could continue to go up for a year or two, but at some point it would correct. And I think we were correct in that discussion, right? Like it has kind of
Yeah,
like petered out. On the three fronts, I would say I don't think there's more chips coming out of TSMC at a substantially increased rate. Maybe another 50% growth, but I don't think
I think it's
the
going to be demand problem. I think it's going to be demand problem, not a supply problem.
correct. Yeah. So the supply is not going to grow, but I do want to say that, right? Like the supply is not going to grow. Second, I don't see any major innovations on the chip designs themselves. Like I think a lot of people are saying, oh, we're going to go from like H series to B series, and there's going to be another series. Problem is, a large part of what happened in the last transition was going from CNN's support to more and more transformer-like support. The simpler the chips get, the less advantage they have. So that's actually like a negative for them if they keep going down that road. Now they're no longer general processors anymore. They're more ASICs, and anybody can go to TSMC and order the same similar ASICs. Although NVIDIA has patents on certain blocks, if those blocks aren't being used, what's the point? And then the third one, I would say on the software front, I think it's the strategy that they've taken to try and like start shipping the software so that people start coming up with the ideas that they're going to use. It's kind of weird strategy wise, because if that's such a good idea, why isn't NVIDIA just become the product, right? Like if they think they're going to be making all these autonomous cars, why are they making the software available to the car manufacturers to make their own self-driving? Why aren't they just making a self-driving solution and letting them license it? It's this weird, like we will enable others, but we're not going to do it ourselves. It's a little
Wait,
odd to
I
me.
missed the last point. Why would they do it the other way? Like you mean why aren't they doing what Tesla's doing? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes,
but why
exactly.
would they? That's a lot more capital intensive proposition.
I mean, the proposition they're making right now is that we are training a real world high fidelity sim with all this data. Look, it's very possible with all our chips. We're going to make it available to everybody. And then everybody's going to be able to use that to train and deploy, like, cars and do all this other stuff.
Do you think that's wrong? Do you think that's a
Uh,
false statement?
I think it's a good way to sell your hardware and have some lock in. I think it's a false statement. I don't think the car manufacturers are going to be able to pull it off with NVIDIA's stuff,
So
even.
you don't think Toyotas will become autonomous?
Yeah, I agree. I
You
don't think
don't
Toyota's going
think
to be autonomous.
Toyota can develop FSD unsupervised for, let's say, the highway only with NVIDIA's chips? Is that the statement?
Oh, no, highway only, sure. Okay, yeah. That they could develop some better ADAS on highway. Yes,
Okay.
I agree.
So wait, no, unsupervised means eyes off. You don't think they can do eyes off?
I'm not confident. No,
Okay, but you're not saying it's no way.
no, I'm not saying it's no way.
Yeah, because I think they will do that. I think other
Yeah,
automakers will develop.
there's a big market for them selling those inference chips. That is the most promising space they have of the three. The third one's the most promising. I do have
Okay.
to drop though.
Okay.
Um,
Take care.
yeah. All right. Anyway. Have a good day. Have a good year.
All right, Ethan. All right. Toyota stock is up 2% today. Flat in the last 5 days, up 10% in the last month. Trading at 10 times PE ratio, $300 billion market cap company. Now partnered with NVIDIA. Let's do an overview. Let's see what Lucia has to say. Let's do an overview real quick of what Jensen said yesterday. No, never mind. Lucia, go ahead.
I think it's insane that Nvidia is down after yesterday presentation. I think I cannot explain it.
I think it's going to go down further. I think he's saying that it's at $3.5 trillion today.
But they surely have presented the new ways to make money, new innovations, terrible innovation. So,
which one?
Well,
what is their number one innovation they talked about?
Well, the chip that basically can run all the data of the internet simultaneously. Now,
what's that chip called?
Don't tell me the specifics, bro. It happened yesterday, and there was a lot of going on. Obviously, I haven't memorized everything.
Okay. So you're telling me you heard a bunch of things, you don't know what you heard, and you're like, okay, it should be up. I don't know. That's not good enough, Luce.
That's not the only thing, though.
Luce, you should talk in other spaces. All right. Treasury yields are high, 470. ISM services data came in strong today, 54%, above the expected 53%. Job openings came in higher than expected, 8.1 million versus 7.8 million prior. And because of that, yields surged. And that's the kind of reaction we're seeing from the Max 7 companies. At exactly 10 o'clock when this data was released, the stock markets sold off substantially. Within half hour, the NASDAQ was down about 1.5% from initial levels. So clearly, the market is concerned of elevated inflation, and we're going to get a lot more economic data today, this week. Tomorrow, we got the initial claims, continuing claims, ADP employment change. This week is the employment week. So since the primary concern here is inflation, the markets will want to see next week's data. But I think this concern spans beyond 1 month's data. You know, the Fed is concerned as well of elevated inflation, that they haven't been able to get it down to 2% still. So, looks like they're going to hold interest rates for a while, and we'll see what happens after that. FSD community tracker is showing 400 or 500 miles per critical disengagement, but a lot of this is coming from just a couple of testers that just started entering data. So it's unfortunate that the trend mean was removed. So, at this point, without the trend mean, these numbers aren't that meaningful. But the lessons that we learned over the last few years, from V10 to V11 to V13, tells me this is going to be a while before robotaxis come about. We're talking maybe 5-10 years. Warren Buffett sold most of his stake in Apple. In just over a year, Warren Buffett has ditched almost 2/3 of his stake in the technology company, which at its peak in 2023 accounted for $178 billion of the company's stock portfolio, from $178 billion to $69 billion. That's a massive sell-off. And I would think that he continued to sell us. So this data is as of September 30th, and I think soon we're going to find out that Warren Buffett sold more of a stake. We're going to find in about 5 weeks or so. Tesla is down 3.4%. I think the company is worth about $200 per share. But if a recession starts, then we're looking at $100 per share. And I haven't added to my position recently. The stock came down quite a bit in the last month from its high of $488 to now below 400. So that's a very significant drop from the peak. So that's a 20% drop. And all of that happened in the last couple of weeks. So maybe it's oversold a little bit in the near term. Who knows? But if it moves towards all-time highs again, I'll probably add to my position. All right, let's look at some news. Let's go to Sawyer. Yeah, there's an interesting debate going on right now. I wish I brought this up when Meta was here. If Wes wants to come up, maybe we can talk about it. But um, one of the announcements that NVIDIA made yesterday was, I think, I didn't watch this speech, so I kind of just saw a few posts about it. But um, this debate between simulation miles and real world miles have heated up again. And Mayur replied to Sawyer and says, "Can someone explain to me why a supercomputer running trillions of scenarios that occur in the real world cannot adequately produce a reliable self-driving car? Are we underestimating NVIDIA's capabilities?" Honest question from a guy with no knowledge of AI. And I think with some of the innovations that are happening in AI, let's say generative AI, um, I wonder if Wes agrees with the statement. What you can do with simulation miles is increasing rapidly. I don't know if it's ever going to get to 100%, you know, um, like what you can do with real world miles, that you're going to be able to do 100% of it with simulation miles, but I think the gap is closing. Wes, what do you think?
Hey, I hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, I think the gap is closing. It's a big gap, and then you have to understand that when you simulate something, and I think people can easily see this. When you simulate something, it doesn't mean that it's real and that it would actually simulate something that happens in the real world. So you can simulate tons of things, but it doesn't mean that it's going to happen in the real world. So when you train on something, you want to be sure that what you train on is going to be high value, and you don't want to train on things that are low value. So we try to pick those things that we train on. And when you simulate things, you have less confidence in that it's going to actually be something that you'll experience in the real world, and it'll be good for training. So simulation is going to be a part of the equation, no doubt. Will it become more? Yes, more of the equation for companies that don't have real data, but for the companies that do have real data and can get it at a cheaper cost and higher confidence than simulated, yeah, totally. It'll become more of the equation. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
So doesn't that reduce the value of Tesla's existing fleet in developing FSD?
In the limit, no. If you hold one of those variables constant, yes. but they're not holding those variables constant. So they're constantly innovating on better ways to use real world data and cheaper ways to get that data and build it into their model. So those variables are important. But in the limit, so in the limit, no, but holding just, one of those things constant, yes. Because simulated data is getting just better and better all the time. Like we built a simulation engine way back in 2014. The simulation engine, I'm sure now is, way better. And I can see how using that simulation with real world data could be extremely powerful. And I can give a couple of examples of that if it helps, but it's always going to be a part of the equation.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Do you think Toyota, with its partnership NVIDIA, can develop an unsupervised ADAS system? So I'm not asking about robotaxis, like no driver, but unsupervised, let's say, on most of the miles that people travel on.
Again, like in the limit, yes, but like in a given time frame, no.
Let's say
So in the time,
let's say next 5, 10 years.
possibly they'd have to put a ridiculous amount of money into it, and I'm not sure they'd have the appetite for that. It's a huge
How
capital
much how
investment,
much do you think
obviously.
they would have to put in?
Somewhere in the 20 to 50 to 70 billion-dollar range
And
would be
that's
required.
because of training
Yeah,
compute? Okay. Do they
yeah,
have to have
IP and training, right?
do they have to have training compute in house like Cortex, or do you think they can use Microsoft Azure or
Oh, sure. Yeah,
AWS?
definitely, definitely. In fact, that'd probably be a better way because I
Okay.
can see them going down the kind of legacy thinking route where it's like, oh, we'll put one version of autonomous driving in, and then it'll be set that way forever. And if you need it updated, you got to bring it into the dealer. So they probably won't retrain often, is what I'm thinking.
I mean, they have cash on hand of $100 billion, you know.
Yeah, how do they want to spend that though? Is the question. So I don't think they're totally bought into an autonomous future. It doesn't seem like it to me. They're not making a lot of big bets around that. Obviously, other companies are, but I'm not seeing that yet. Maybe they will in the future, but I'm not seeing that level of investment yet.
Okay. Um, what is the probability in your mind of Tesla ditching its own inference computer efforts, or let's say after hardware 4 or hardware 5, and then starting to use NVIDIA's inference computer?
Near zero. The reason I say this is that the inference chip is way less IP sensitive or um, necessary for inference compute. Inference compute is way easier, and you don't need as custom of an ASIC to do it. To get the efficiencies that you need. So the train on the training side is much different. It's very particular architectures for training. But for inference, it's much more simplified, much less layers in the net. So it's just that compute is much easier to iterate on and get efficient in more of a general architecture. So I don't see them doing that. I see them to keep iterating on it. Inference compute is way easier.
Okay. All right. Interesting. I mean, if all Toyota needs is $10 billion, $20 billion, and I'm guessing that number will probably decline um, 10 years from today. And it's the decision between, continuing as a company or going under because Tesla has
Yeah, totally.
unsupervised, and they would make that decision.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they just have to have the vision to spend that money when they need to, and then follow through. But I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Okay. Um, are you lightening up on NVIDIA holdings?
Nope. Jensen's talk kind of reiterated how I feel about NVIDIA. is that they're moving faster than any other company in the space, with their designs and architectures. I have a bit of a different view than Meta on the company. So I still feel like they continue to demonstrate to me that they're the leaders, and they will continue to be the leaders for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think their problem is going to be demand driven though, not supply driven. So they, even though they continue to, like for example, Tesla continuously out innovates its competitors on EVs and on FSD, scalable, let's say, high scale FSD, vision only, and still it encountered a huge demand problem from 22 to 2023 to 2024 and is facing another down year possibly in 2025. And this is after the management thought that they would continue 50% growth rate for years to come as late as 2022. And so they didn't really see it coming. It sounds like, I don't know. But so even though you out innovate your competitors, you can still run into demand issues in the near term, don't you think?
Yeah, the macro kind of is the determiner of that, and with all things considered, I do think that the Chinese automakers are innovating at an extremely accelerating pace, and I really do wonder if they're matching or exceeding Tesla's rate. I'm kind of seeing a lot of interesting vehicles coming out of China. I'm actually planning a trip to China now to go kind of more deeply investigate this, to kind of test. I think that's the biggest contributing factor to how well Tesla will do in the next 1 to 2 years.
Yeah. And you don't think the Chinese can replicate that on semiconductors front? Wes, you're on mute. Wes, you're on mute. All right. Looks like we have connection issues going on. Any other questions, comments, please request to speak. Otherwise, we're going to end the space. Limiting my spaces to 1 hour today, more like office hours more than anything else. Wes? Yeah, I'm going to move you down. I see your hand, but I'm going to move you down and bring you back up. See if that works. Okay, Wes?
Hey, I think I lost you for a time, so I'm
So you don't think the
40 seconds
Chinese can
behind.
replicate what they did with EVs on, like, basically caught up to Tesla on many fronts, and you don't think they can do that with NVIDIA?
Yeah, it's interesting. I've been thinking that for many years, maybe even more than 2 decades, on why other companies can't compete with NVIDIA. Like AMD tried back in the day, ATI tried originally, and then the kind of the genesis of this was this company called Voodoo back in the day. I don't know if any old people remember that, but they just haven't. No company has been able to step up to them. But then again, Jensen has not been able to compete in certain markets. Like he's never penetrated the mobile market. Qualcomm rules that, and he's never really penetrated, largely like Intel's domain. But Intel has been supplanted by other companies. But the areas that he truly does compete in, like second to none. Like doesn't it just it's relentless and never ending. and that's been the same thing with AI since day one. And
I don't think they're as dominant as you think, though. I think that's only a last 1 to 2 year phenomenon. Before
okay,
that,
well, tell me why.
yeah,
Why
before
do you
that in
think that?
2022, they had zero profits. I mean, nearly zero profits in 2022. How does a dominant company have zero profits? Back in 2019, they had nearly zero profits. Like, it's not like they have decades of, high profit margins or a monopoly or anything. I think they kind of just locked into this, AI
I see.
phenomenon, riding the GPUs that they were already producing. So before, a couple of years before others, did their own, they overcharged everybody by 10 times.
Got it. I'm focusing on the product, and I think you're focusing on profits. The
Well, if the
product has been
product is
there,
truly monopolistic, you would see it in the profits.
but not right away. You have to garner market share in tech first. You have to bring up the market share. So when you
Well,
get the market share, and that
they have
starts to,
99% market share with what they're
they do
doing
now.
in data centers, and
Yeah, they do
still
now.
they're forecasting for the next couple of quarters lower gross margins. And yeah, I don't see them
Yeah.
as dominant, honestly.
Let me tell you a quick story. So back in 2013, I'm working on Xbox, and I'm fighting to with Azure to put more GPUs in to support a physics engine component of this game called Titanfall. And we'd spin up an instance, a very small instance with enough GPU to run a physics engine because it was way more efficient. And Azure pushed back. And they're like, yeah, we don't want to put GPUs in our data centers because like nobody uses them. I'm like, you got to be kidding! Like chicken before the egg type thing. It's like you got to put them in there and people will start using them. Like we will, Xbox. And then the next story is that because then they never did it. We end up running brute force compute to run the physics engine, which was kind of stupid. Um, and then fast forward to Google's attempt at cloud gaming. They put a bunch of silly AMD GPUs in the data center to support that, which were hugely inefficient. Nobody wanted to use them during off times because there was no way for other workloads to run on them. Whereas NVIDIA GPUs, you can run a lot of different workloads on them, including HPC and AI. And what we found were all of these NVIDIAs that we would put on discount for off hours were just being sucked up massively. Some of that was crypto mining, which I get, but largely when we got that fraud under control was AI. A lot of people were doing AI training and inference on these chips. So my point is that once we saw that market start to really develop, we realized there was a huge demand for it. And as the demand just kept going up and up and up, and we're trying to supply, put supply out there for it, you end up having to charge more and more and more because it becomes more mainstream. So that market share grew massively. And then, now the demand is through the roof for some of these companies. So that's why you're seeing all this profit. And that's what I think is going to keep existing for another 2 to 5 years.
All right. Well, I beg to differ, and the I think that people are going to be really surprised. I mean, for what it's worth, Gene Munster agrees with you, and he says for the next couple, they still have a good couple of years of run in growth story of AI companies, and he's very adamant about this. He's talking about it on his newsletters, on his YouTube channel, on CNBC, and so you're not alone in your position, obviously. Not to mention that this is the most valuable company in the world today, and so you're clearly not alone in what you're saying. But I have a very different view. I mean, I actually couldn't be more different than what you're saying. I think their revenue growth will slow down sharply next year, in 2026. I think people are going to be very surprised how rapidly their revenue growth drops and maybe even turns negative. So um, I guess we'll see. We'll see. This is why we have a market. What did you think? Let me ask you this. Before that, before I forget, are you selling any of your Tesla holdings, or are you selling any of your? You said you're not selling
Nope.
any of your Nvidia, but you're not adding to Nvidia either.
No.
Okay, you're
No,
selling
I'm
your
not.
Tesla.
No, I'm not adding to Nvidia. I'm still holding on to a bit of dry powder for like the Optimus announcement, which I'm hoping comes fairly soon, and supervised beta robotaxi starting announcement.
Okay. Um, and what was I going to ask? I was going to ask one more thing about Nvidia. What did you think of Microsoft's announcement, the $80 billion figure?
It's pretty mind blowing, honestly. Like I honestly couldn't believe how big that number is. That they're going to spend that much in 1 year for Microsoft is absolutely amazing. Like that shows such a huge commitment, a big, I would say, overall like focus. Where they're putting almost all of their spend, into AI for the 2025 year. It's pretty amazing. So that was my reaction
Okay.
to that.
Let me ask you, what percent of that do you think is going to go to Nvidia? Ballpark.
Oh, the majority, if not all of it. So the reason that I say this is because I don't know what you'd outfit these data centers with other than GPUs. Obviously you're going to need a lot of control equipment, a lot of backbone, a lot of infrastructure, but the majority of that is going to go to NVIDIA. Like maybe 60 billion worth, maybe more, maybe 70, closer to 70.
Do you know Nvidia's revenue in the last year, in the last 12 months period?
No, I don't keep that close of track on it.
Okay. So how do you know what Microsoft is gonna, if this is significant for Nvidia or not?
Oh, I'm saying that the significance is from the Microsoft side.
Mhm.
That's a significant investment for them. Their R&D spend. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, Nvidia's revenue in the last 12-month period, we're looking at $113 billion. So you're saying most of the 80, like $70 billion is gonna go to Nvidia.
Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
That's my expectation anyway.
Okay. All right. Well, I beg to differ. I think a very small portion of that money is going to Nvidia.
Where do you think it'll go?
Well, just the other expenses of building data centers, and there are multiple companies who provide GPUs as well. So I would guess a minority portion will go to Nvidia.
Which other GPU makers do you think it'll go to?
I don't know. I guess we'll see. Maybe they'll do their own ASICs. Maybe they'll buy from AMD. It's just that they didn't necessarily say Nvidia. And there's other companies around the world. Like, for example, if you want to build a data center in a country, maybe their government doesn't allow this and that, so it's possible. And there's other things,
Ah,
like I said,
gotcha.
there are other things, like I said, that goes into building data center as well, not just GPUs.
Yeah. Well, I do know that OpenAI trains exclusively on NVIDIA, so they don't have any other option. Their entire infrastructure is built on top of NVIDIA. So if they were to use something different, that would be a huge, huge shift. I don't even know what they would use because there's no other real competitor that I'm aware of. Grok, the company Grok, and Tens Torrent are the only real competitors that I'm aware of. Cerebras does not have a real offering as of yet, so that's it that I know of. AMD is not a player at all. So my expectation is
Percent,
that it'll be
what percent of a capex for a data center do you think goes towards buying GPUs?
with a AI focused data center. The spend would be somewhere in the 70 to 80% range. And then if you're re-outfitting an existing data center and just putting in AI specific stuff, it becomes more like 90 to 95%, which I think is something that they're going to do. So that's why that kind of like helps you understand my range.
Okay.
Sorry for the background noise.
No problem.
I appreciate having this conversation, though, and I know you hold a different view, and I appreciate the conversation.
What percent, if you don't mind sharing, what percent of the portfolio is NVIDIA?
Oh, not very much. It fluctuates, obviously, but I feel like it's just above double digits. Not really anything terribly meaningful. Not like Tesla, where Tesla is largely closer to 70 to 80%,
Okay.
somewhere in there. And now that Tesla spiked again, I'm not too sure exactly where it's at.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, we just passed 1 hour. Appreciate. What did you think of Jensen's statement that he thinks robotaxis are going to be the first real world AI application?
Did he say that specifically? Because I feel like AI agents are going to be doing real world stuff here really soon. Like not just like call center stuff where you call into a call center and you're like, I want a refund, and it gives you a refund without involving a human. I feel like
Yeah,
the
so
agent stuff is.
he said, quote, I
Yeah.
predict that robotaxi is going to be the first multi-billion-dollar robotics industry.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, if Waymo scales, Waymo can potentially do that, but the highway stuff isn't, as I've found out. I actually thought that was public, in the hands of the public, but it isn't. Like, that's a big deal if they haven't scaled the highway. It shows that their solution is not, fast mode travel. That's bad. But I thought they had, and they hadn't. So they would be potentially could beat Tesla, but gosh, now that I'm almost at 1,000 miles of no interventions on Cybertruck, like, I find it hard to believe that Tesla won't start the robotaxi beta in Q1. So that would be a huge difference there.
Okay. Do you know what percent increase Microsoft's $80 billion figure represents from prior year, last year?
I know their R&D spend is similar, but what I do know is that their AI spend wasn't even close to that. Like, this is a huge difference in just data center AI spend. Like, that's a big deal. Because in the past, it's been more like, oh, well, we'll hire people in AI, and we'll try to build these products, and we'll put a lot of money behind these orgs. It's another thing to say, look, 80 billion AI data centers, go, and do it in 1 year. Like, that's huge for the company. And they've been planning this for a while, because I planned data centers, and it's anywhere from 18 months to 3 years to actually get that money spent and in
Okay.
place and like doing real
I'm going
work.
to make a prediction, and you tell me if it's true or not. Okay?
Okay.
You did not read the actual announcement by Microsoft. You read the headlines.
I read a synopsis.
Yeah. From where?
Oh, I'm not sure where, honestly.
I recommend reading the actual announcement.
Okay. Granted, I don't have an investment in Microsoft. I closed that out a long time ago. But the spend is the thing that I was interested in.
Yeah,
But I'm
that's the
happy
one
to.
that caught the headlines. And what Microsoft said is in line with my position on NVIDIA. The headlines are in line with the bull's position on NVIDIA.
All right.
All right. All right. It's been past 1 hour. Let's call the day. Continue tomorrow. Thank you, Wes.
Yeah. Thanks, man. Have a good one.
You too. Bye bye.